All right, all right, all right. We are back at it. Another excellent adventures. Got another special guest here. Got Dustin from Oak and Egg. They say that the gateway drug of the chicken world is chickens, and the gateway drug to the rest of thing is sourdough bread baking. And this guy right here is proving us right. What's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. How you doing?
I'm well. I'm well. I appreciate you coming on the show. Big fan of you guys' page and your social media page. I think I was introduced to you on Facebook. I mean, no, Instagram.
Yeah.
And I just like, man, I wish I could have came in with like a good color scheme like that. All of y'all's posts like match perfectly.
Oh, that's all thanks to my other half, my wife. So she's the other half of Oak and Egg, and she's the one that handles the sourdough, and I handle the chickens.
There we go. Teamwork at its greatest. I love it.
Makes the dream work, man.
Let's talk about it. So our first question is, what was your old cluck moment? Oh, cluck, I'm a chicken person. How did that happen for you?
You know, my old cluck moment actually was beyond the chickens, and it's when I went up to turkeys. And what we had happen was I was gazing outside of our window, and it was during a storm. And I should say we live in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada in California. And so we had a good storm going. I was looking across the road, and I just see this big bird just flying through the air. And this thing looks like a stork or an eagle, right? And just crashes right into a pine tree across the street and then falls down in the neighbor's backyard. And I'm like, huh. What was that?
Wow.
And my wife walks by, and looks at me and goes, that was one of your turkeys. I was like, oh. So I had to run out in the rain and, cross the road, hop a couple fences, go back into my neighbor's yard, grab this turkey, cram it under my arms, walk across the road, and throw it back into our yard and its pen. And that's when I realized that maybe I've gone beyond what normal people do.
You saved the turkey in the storm.
Yeah. So
the whole time you think some majestic beast, and it's one of your turkeys.
One of my own turkeys.
I love it. Everybody's old cluck moment is just so. It could definitely be a Netflix story. Like it's definitely appreciated to hear those moments. How the heck did you move up the turkeys though? Like what was that moment?
You know, so the turkeys, I gotta say, like being a chicken guy, and I've been a chicken guy for almost 10 years now. And so I like to say that I liked chickens before they were cool.
Right.
But,
same.
What happened is that we started getting, we never had a problem. Then we all of a sudden had a predation problem. And it wasn't foxes. And like I said, living in the mountains here, you kind of, like we got bears, we got mountain lions, we got all that stuff. So you'd expect it to be something like that. And that's what I've got, fences, and, I'm ready for that. What I wasn't ready for was an aerial attack. And we just started getting nailed by this hawk. And hawks are federally protected. You can't touch them. There's nothing you can. And I realized one day that in the natural world of rock, paper, scissors, that turkey beats hawk.
There we go.
We have some roosters, but I mean, when the hawk comes down and nails a chicken, the roosters are kind of like, oh, everyone, get under here. You're safe. I'm not going to do anything about it, though.
Right.
And so we got the turkeys. And I got to say that the turkeys, man, they solve that problem. And the turkeys, on top of that, like, they don't like anything in the yard. If we have a deer hops a fence, turkeys will run that deer out. So, and they watch over the whole flock. We raise them with the chickens, so they think that they're just really big chickens.
Yeah. That's a bonus, man, because like they're pretty to look at. You know what I mean? The care isn't that much off from a chicken. And for them to be just naive enough to want to run off a deer.
Yeah, so I got to say that there's a difference between the two. And we got about 60 chickens. We got, more than a few varieties, as you know. Once you start, it's like Pokemon, you got to have them all.
We got to have them all. That one has a mohawk. I need it.
A lot. So we sell our eggs on the right to help fund this addiction. But a lot of them, they're not there for eggs. They're there just because when I look at them, they make me laugh. But
right.
Where I was going with this is that with the turkeys, most chickens And there's exceptions. We all got ones with personalities. We all got ones that like us or whatever, and that will hop up on you. But most chickens they kind of look at you when you come in like, are you kill me now or later?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're like, oh, I've been giving you food for 5 years. I don't know why you don't trust me. You know, and I've pulled burrs out of your eyes and everything in between. They still look at you that way.
Mm-hmm.
Turkeys are not like that. So turkeys are a far more social animal. And when you raise them, like I had my daughter raise our turkeys in the house, until they were big.
Right.
But they see you as part of the family. They see you as their friend, their mother, whatever it is. But they are incredibly loyal. They are not afraid of you. They want to be around you all the time. It's like having a big feathered dog. I mean, that's the analogy I can draw for you. So they give a lot of enjoyment, other than we haven't had a single predation incident since we got the turkeys.
That's incredible. That's incredible stuff. I want to know about, so you're in the mountains. Y'all got all types of predators that could come at any given time. Obviously, we got the attack turkeys, right? But what were some of the other things you did to keep the bears and mountain lions out?
The thing about a bear is that you don't keep a bear out. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, we see how Winnie the Pooh is when it comes to honey, so I can imagine what a black bear would be doing.
I got bees too, so don't mention that to Winnie. But
I definitely want to talk to you about the bees because I'm afraid of bees.
Well, yeah. So the big thing with bears is just, this is the way I look at it. And I'm going to sound horrible for saying this, but we live in a rural neighborhood and I make myself a hard target. And I know there's a lot of soft targets around here.
There you go.
So the bear is going to go for the low hanging fruit. And that's kind of how I set us up. So I got my whole property's fenced. And then I have a secondary fence that protects the main coops. And then I have the coops built solidly themselves. So if a bear is going to come in, it's got to go through 3 layers of defense. And I'm hoping that by the time it does that, I'm awake. Yeah. And then I can go deal with the bear.
Right. There you go. I like it. Fencing is our friend.
Yeah, it is.
Cool. So when you first 10 years ago, you get into chickens, what was that conversation with yourself or your wife, or how did that happen?
So I actually got to go back even earlier than that. I should say I grew up not rural. I grew up in LA.
Okay. So I grew up in East Orange and Montclair, New Jersey. Not a chicken in sight.
No.
Except KFC. That was it.
there was that. And so I don't know like what sort of loving heart my parents had, but I was in first grade in LA Unified, and they did the thing where you raise chickens in the classroom. Then the teacher does the classic, like, hey, who wants to take a chicken home? I was there and I was like, I'll take 3.
Me.
And so I got to say, I think it started several decades ago, and we illegally had chickens in our side yard, and then 2 of the 3 chickens turned into roosters, and they had to disappear before we got found out from the neighbors.
Right.
So then I had 1 pet chicken growing up, and I had always wanted one again. And finally, when my wife and I were living rural in Southern California for a while, I just told her, I'm like, I like fresh eggs and I really like chickens. Like, I'm going to order 6 chickens. And that's how it started.
That's cool. We are the minority. I just want you to know that we are the men or husbands or boyfriends that wanted the chickens. Usually it's, you see all the posts like, I got to talk my husband into getting chickens. No, I'm the one frivolously spending money on animals.
That's the same here with us. And it's kind of funny. There is a bit of a role reversal in that I'm the one that loves like the gardening. I like the chickens. I like the concept of, having fruit trees and all that stuff. And my wife, she's totally into the sourdough, as you know, from our page. And she is the professional at sourdough.
Yeah, very much so. She's baking bread that looks like pumpkins. It's a full thing. I'm very, very intrigued.
Yeah, no, I sit here. It's really a beneficial relationship because I'm always testing these things that she's making. And
okay, so there you go.
You'll probably have to roll me up our stairs in a few, like for right now. Good, but
man, I can imagine.
changes, you know, like
Mhm.
I handle the chicken stuff and I love the chickens. She's got that and she does woodworking too. I mean, there's another thing. It's usually the dude likes to go out and do
Yeah.
woodworking, but I don't want to touch it. I want to go deal with the chickens. Unless
There you
it's
go.
woodworking for the chickens.
Yeah, see, then it's a
Yeah.
win-win. You come home, she's built a new staircase, and you
And I'm
I get
designing
it.
number 3.
Hmm. That's cool. That's really cool. Did she ever surprise you with something for like the coop or something with the woodwork?
Oh yeah. I remember in our very first coop that we had, it's I guess it's her love language. She built me the door for for the hens to come out of at the
Oh,
time.
cool.
And
Cool.
so like that was the very start. That's how I knew that she was supportive of my chicken habit.
There you go. You got to have an enabler. That's cool. And then you right back supporting her with trying all of these bread recipes. How big of a difference is it to have fresh baked bread than what you get from the grocery store?
It's uh this is not an exaggeration. I can't even eat commercial bread anymore.
Thank you.
And I gotta say that this you'll rarely hear me say this, but there's a few things that Europe does right that I think as opposed to how we do things in the US, and one of
Uh-huh.
our like mass produced food systems, that's one of the things that we've done terribly.
Incredibly wrong. I can say that just getting into this space of having my own omelets every day, I see the
Right?
difference.
I mean, it's something that we all know, but somehow we the vast majority of us were okay with it. Like you'd eat a store-bought tomato and like that's normal. And then you have one from a garden, you're like, wow, this tastes 1,000 times better. And
Right.
people can question it for a long time, and it felt like until recently. But that's how it is with the bread. Like her bread is phenomenal. Like we have friends that have babies and stuff that don't like to eat anything. They're
Mhm.
super picky eaters, and then you
Right.
give them some of her bread, and they're sitting there and like you never knew that they knew the sign for more, and they're just like
Mhm.
like this, like
More bread. Now you've become a baby bread addict.
even the chickens, man. Like one of the things that we always do is that she always has a ton of leftover starter and
Mm.
leaven from her cooking that you don't use. And
Mhm.
instead of throwing it out, I go out there and I dump it for the chickens as a probiotic. And man, it's like a feeding frenzy. There's very few things that they go crazier for than old starter.
I can imagine. I'm gonna have to put that in the notes
Yeah.
when I start baking my bread.
So
That's cool, man. That's really cool. Well, when did you know like this is my thing? I'm gonna be the taste tester.
it really started small for us, and the bread baking started right around the chicken rearing. So, I mean, maybe there's a link there, man. I don't know.
Probably so. It's
I
gotta be.
It's a self-sustaining aspect of it. Like, once you realize that you can do one thing, the dominoes start falling, right?
Yeah.
But, she was making the regular loaves for just the family, and I think it was a few years ago where she started experimenting. She started doing focaccia, and the very first focaccia that she did is a cinnamon sugar focaccia.
Mm.
And that is still, I mean, you could set a trap for me, and you could tell me, like, Dustin, that is a trap. Like, you're going to get caught in that. But if you bait it with that cinnamon focaccia, I'm going to go eat it every time.
There you go.
You know,
You gotta know your weaknesses. That's cool, man. That's the thing. Like when you just said it, you start to develop these things and grow your things and kind of make your own things, and then you see the quality is so much better. At what point do you start the garden, and what came first? So what, the chicken or the garden or the bread? So the chicken and the bread came pretty much the same time. Did the garden come right after?
yeah, I think all of us, any one of us that has like a side yard or anything, always
Yeah.
start like someone's always planting tomatoes or whatever, right? But
Mhm.
like when you start getting serious and you're like, hey, how can I actually impact my food bill? I
Mm.
think that probably happened about the same time. If you're going to do anything, you may as well jump right into it, right?
Right.
So for us, it really expanded. And then we actually moved at one point, and we moved to where we are now. We all of a sudden went from having a little bit of land to like having, just over an acre, which isn't a lot. And
No, that's a lot.
people,
I'm not gonna let you lie to the people, Dustin. A lot can be done on an acre. Like I'm on an acre and a half. I'm about to move to a lot more, but on an acre and a half, a lot can be done on that.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is there's a misconception, I think. Like people think that you have to have a 30-acre farm,
Mhm.
and you don't. I mean, one of the best and easiest things is like I planted fruit trees when we first moved here. And in the 6 years that we've been here, the fruit tree is just watching them mature and then going from making like 1 or 2 apples or a couple peaches to like the branches are breaking. There's so many peaches on this thing,
Wow.
like that's cool. That's cool. And like getting to see your kids go out there and eating that food instead of food that you just go buy in a bag. Like
Right.
you
Full
can't
of
put monetary value on that.
No, you can't. I mean, watching, like you said, watching the kids go out pick their own fruits, and it's healthy. It's not full of GMOs and crazy amounts of pesticides and paint, red 50s, and everything else. And I know you taste the difference. I'm sure they taste the difference.
Yeah. And, I think that, and I'm sure you've experienced this too. This is really, I feel like a generational revolution going on with the questioning where our food comes from and being a little more self-sustained, because there's definitely folks in our neighborhood that walk by that are of a generation or two above me.
Mm-hmm.
They look at us like we're crazy. And we may be. I'm not ruling out that we're crazy.
Right.
But this return to, hey, what is our food? What are we eating? What's getting put into it? And where does it come from?
Mm-hmm.
That's radically changed from my childhood when we went to, McDonald's and there was no question about what you're eating. It was food.
Yeah, it's food.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even then, I'm an 80s baby. So McDonald's in the 80s was way different than McDonald's in 2024. So like I can remember chicken nuggets tasting like an actual piece of chicken and not like fried plastics. I don't know what, you know what I mean? Like there's a difference. So being able to have even just the eggs, like I taste the difference in my eggs than when I go to get big egg, you know what I mean? Like if I'm shopping big eggs. So now there are some responsible commercial producers, but
for sure,
it's a big difference.
But even now, like what I'm seeing, and we had to go through the process with the state of California, which process is the key word there for getting certified for selling our eggs.
Yeah.
But if there's anything like that, a positive or a silver lining of this egg shortage that's going on right now is that we're getting all these new customers. And then even as eggs have kind of trickled back to some degree, people don't want to go back to them.
No.
Because
why go back?
We're getting people sending us pictures of like the different colors of our yolks. And they're like, I never even knew that an egg could be like this. I'm like, this is what it's meant to be. Like,
all right. That's what it's actually supposed to look like.
And I think that's the domino, man. That's like and that's why chickens are the gateway drug, because once you have that, then you start asking like, well, what's in my bread?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you get sourdough. And then you're like, well, what are they putting? Like when they say that it's Roundup free tomatoes at the store, that doesn't really instill confidence in me.
No.
So then you start growing your own tomatoes. And like we drove to Idaho to get a half cow because it was grass fed, like knew the place, knew the people that owned it. And I can tell you right now that beef is better than any beef I've ever had in my whole life.
That's what I'm talking about. And that's what I really love about this space. Like I wouldn't have met you and been able to have this conversation had I not been in this space. And you start opening up all of these gateways and doors of conversations for us to have, you know what I mean? And just like share information. Cause I no way ever in my life would I want to think about keeping bees until I saw you guys and one of my other friends, Solo, he has bees. And I'm like, maybe I want fresh honey. You know what I mean? And it's like just having these incredibly informative and entertaining conversations. And I wouldn't have had them had we not got into this. Now I'm looking at ingredients on food. Like if I don't, I'm trying to stick to like one ingredient foods, right? Outside of what we make. So like in the bread, it may have 5 or 6 ingredients, but you know what's in there, right? But if I look at something on the back of a box and it has a word I can't pronounce or spell on my own, I got a college education, but I don't know what is in this is glycerine. I don't know what that is. You know what I mean?
My day job, I'm a scientist, and I can't.
Oh, okay.
So no one should feel bad about that. If I can't say them, we're in trouble.
That's true.
So yeah, no, the bees are another thing. Like, I mean, I was the same way. I didn't really know if I wanted bees, but then I have a buddy that has 30 hives.
Wow.
And he told me, he goes, hey, it's a learning curve. There's nothing else like it. But like you can use like everything that the bees make, you use the beeswax, you can make your own soaps and shampoos and lotion out of it. And the honey, especially everyone's talking about now, like local honey, especially for allergies and cold and flu. There's no more local honey than the bees
BlackYard honey.
Yeah.
Right.
And it is phenomenal. It does taste totally different. And every batch tastes different.
Okay, so every batch you're saying tastes different.
Yeah, it just depends on what they're getting into.
That makes sense. It's like my old dating life. There's difference depending on what you're getting into.
Yeah. Just the same thing. It's all different flavors.
Right. And on what happened on the weekend. I love it. So you talk to your buddy, he's got 30 hives. He kind of inches you, nudges you toward it. What was that conversation like at home? Like, I think we're going to get bees.
My wife, Lee, she was 100% supportive of it because it's another thing that, it's funny how these things start connecting. Like one of the key ingredients in a lot of her breads, like the focaccia, is honey.
Gotcha.
And so if you're using your own honey in it, now the magnitudes of flavor and taste, it's going to increase dramatically.
Love it.
And like what you were saying, the other cool thing is about this whole community is once you start networking and you meet people, and like you and I are chicken people, right? But you meet people that specialize in something else. And sometimes, the way that works is an idea transfer. You're like, hey, I could do that too. Or it's like, well, that's not my thing, but I can get this from that person now.
Exactly. And I really appreciate those relationships too. And that's kind of how this podcast came about. Just not it's stealing information in a safe space. Yeah. So that's what it is. Like, hey, what did you do with this? And then, you know what I mean? Hopefully I can help spread those ideas to others.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we're on the crest of this revolution that's been going on for a few years now, but I think more and more people are getting on board with it, and more people are realizing that they can sustain themselves, even if it's not 100%, even if you're doing 20%, like better than zero.
Yeah, way better than zero. Way better. With us here, we have to do a candling course. We got to learn how to grade eggs. You got to wash them. You got to refrigerate them. You got to date them. Was there any like specific things that you guys have to do to legally sell eggs? Like you said, the process in California.
Yeah. So there's 2 separate sets of licenses. There's a egg handler's license, and you literally cut them a check and they cut you a license and send you a handbook and they say, hey, follow this handbook. Okay. And a lot of it is stuff like that. Like they'll send you a little ruler for how to grade them and how to store them and wash them and all that. It's largely and disconcertingly on the honor system for that.
Yeah. I mean, sounded like it. Just pay us and we'll trust you.
Yeah. And then the second half of it is, of course, being California, there's animal welfare law regarding it, where you have to be certified cruelty free. I forget the exact prop number that it satisfies, but basically they have an inspector come and check out your square footage and your coop and make sure that that's all, good to go, and that your birds are happy and healthy. And I'm supportive of that, obviously, 100%. I don't think any chicken should be crammed in a 1-foot cage, but Where it has become ridiculous is, for example, I have a third of an acre for the chickens to roam on. And,
Yeah.
they have these nice big palatial coops.
Right.
It's got a door on it that opens and closes so they don't get eaten. And
Yeah.
they go in there at night. Well, they don't count my acre of land for free range and all that. They don't count that the square footage. It's just the coop where they sleep. Because I technically confine them.
Yeah, so that's weird when during the day and during the time where they would actually be out, they're pasture raised by, I guess, definition. They're really on a pasture. They can go out and do whatever they want to do until it's time to come back in at night.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that I had asked the inspector, I'm like, hey, if the door is open 24/7, and they're like, oh, we can count everything. I'm like, but just because
I won't have any chickens
when they're sleeping, then they can only count the coop. So that's just kind of the ridiculousness of it.
Right. It's like when you have too many smart people in a room making the rules up.
The problem is not like smart people. The problem is getting people that have actually done that thing.
Mm-hmm.
You get people making rules that have never done that. So non-chicken farmers making chicken farmer rules.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like people that never played the sport making all the sport rules. Like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
I get it. Does anything as your job that you've looked at and try to, I'm sure things that things that you're kind of using from a professional standpoint, do you science it up back there with the chickens?
It's for me, it's kind of like my release. So I try not to cross the two, but inevitably when you've been trained to think and look a certain way, that starts occurring. And I think that for me, where that comes in is keeping the flock healthy and, preventing pathogens from getting to them. And so there's some of the stuff that I do, I'll use an example right now, that despite what you've seen in the news, Northern California has gotten a ton of rain, and that's where we are. And the chickens area is turning to soup, and despite all my best efforts. And so for me, the battle's really been, hey, how can I stop all this excessive moisture? Because wherever you got excessive moisture, you're going to get pathogens, and you're going to get fleas, and you're going to get insects, and you're going to get everything, that can make your flock sick. And so it's looking at different ways to do that, along with, and I think it's probably a struggle of most chicken owners, finding the perfect watering system.
Yeah.
I feel like I've gone through
nipples and drinkers and every single different thing you can think of.
In the end, I think that the ultimate one that does not fail is just having a big pool of water and filling it up and cleaning it every day. So
I agree. I just bought another chicken waterer because it gets pretty cold here. So I'm like, bring one in, bring one out, bring one in, bring one out, clean it up, switch it out, and give it to them and keep it moving.
Yeah. I would say, though, on the science side of it, if you look at what my wife has been doing with sourdough, that's what's pretty fascinating, because she too is a scientist.
Okay.
And she's been really looking into the microbiota of the sourdough and the different things that make it up and how that affects your personal health. So, and that's a huge thing. And so I'd say anyone listening, go check out our Instagram. She's been doing these science Sundays for sourdough, where she's kind of explaining the science of sourdough and how it's relevant to us, the people that eat it and bake it.
That's incredible stuff. I'm a fan of the Waddle Wednesdays. My daughter calls them chicken cheek pepperoni. So every time I see those, I'm like, look at them playing with the chicken cheek pepperoni.
It's always fun to see the different reaction. I mean, chickens are just like people, and I'm sure you've realized this too. They all come out of the box with their own personalities. Some of them are kind, and some of them are jerks.
Yeah.
It's fun to see the different reactions to the Waddle rub with the different personalities.
It really is. Talk to me about actual chicken nutrition. Like, what are you guys doing? I heard you say use some of this stuff for the probiotics, some of the stuff you weren't using with the bread, and what else you got going?
With the chickens, a big thing for us. So we always get an egg crumble that's organic, and that's their base food. But what I try to do is, especially having them have a third of an acre, it's in an oak forest, so there's a diverse ecosystem going on there for them to get into. There's deep leaf litters, there's bugs like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So what I try to do is I try to feed them, and then I purposely let their feed run low, and then I give them a day or two of not having a ton of feed available and letting them go out and forage. Yeah. And that really forces them, because chickens are like people. They're going to be lazy and they're going to go straight to the feeder. But I've noticed that when you give them a pause, and like I said, I don't do it that long. It's usually like a day or two. They'll actually go out in the woods and they'll sustain themselves, and they'll get those good proteins, and they'll get those seeds. And you can see, there's a dramatic effect for even us on our property where we let them range, and the amount of weeds that we've had that have just decreased over the years. So they're getting stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man. I appreciate you sharing that. What's your go-to chicken treat for them, like snack? Is it the fruit from the trees? And how are you keeping them out of the garden?
Yeah. I'm laughing at that because I think I'm going through what everyone is going through about this time of year, which is they've gone through the molt, and we got a 6-foot fence, but
they jump over that.
And that's when it comes to wing clipping time. And so now is the season where I always have the kids help me do this. Like, hey, go grab cookies and cream, because they all have names, by the way. All of us have names.
I mean, once you name them, you can't eat them. You name them, you can't eat them. So there we go.
It's true. So I don't know how I keep track of 60 names. So we do. It's go grab cookies and cream. I gotta clip her wings. And you clip her wings, you put her over. The big thing for us is that we have most of our fruit trees back in the chicken area, and that's like a symbiotic relationship. I will protect the trunks when they're young. I'll usually wrap them. Yeah. And then I'll do a little 2-foot perimeter around them so that they can't scratch up the roots until they get bigger.
Gotcha.
And, but that, like I said, it's symbiotic, because any fruit that you don't get or that falls down or is misshapen, hits the ground, they clean it up. It's gone.
Love it. That's cool. Do the bees help? Have they been helping with the gardening and pollination at all? Or do they kind of do what they want to do?
Yeah. So bees are really interesting in that they can literally range miles. Like, a lot of people don't realize how far they go. They can go 3 or 4, sometimes farther miles looking for flowers. Yeah. But there's definitely, last year when we were looking in our garden, I saw way more bees, and it's because we had 2 hives on the property, and they go for, like anything else in nature, they go for the low hanging fruit. When you got something that's 40 feet away and not 4 miles away, they're going to
shop at home, right? Work from home, basically.
Yeah, exactly. The trippy thing about them is it's like having a beehive is like having an airport on your property. And there'll be times where I'd be working, I'd look out and the sun's just right, and you can see their takeoffs and their departures, and it's nonstop, man. It's just like, when you hear the phrase "busy as a bee," you understand where it comes from, because watching them, it's from sunrise to sunset, and they just climb. Our oak trees are probably 80, 90 feet tall. Yeah, big oaks here. And they just climb straight to the top of them, and you see them just shoot off into the horizon, going somewhere.
That's crazy. That is crazy. That's incredible to see, though, man. I can imagine it's just very relaxing situation to watch.
Yeah. And, the bees, we got 3 kids, and they're all over the yard doing all sorts of things, yelling, screaming on swing sets, trampolines. The bees don't touch them. And it's because the bees are very much into doing their own thing. And as long as you don't go to the front of the hive and screw around, you're fine. Yeah. So that's a misconception about them, that you're going to get stung or your kids are going to get stung.
That's what I need to know. I got stung 4 times this summer, but every time was my fault. So it was I kept finding air quotes, finding yellow jacket nests in my yard. And they're ground hivers. So I would find one usually toward dusk when the sun is setting, and then it will find me back. So I got attacked like 6 times this summer. It's crazy.
Hey, I've been there, and I'm an animal lover, except for
Mhm.
those things. There's really like no redeeming quality to them. And I
It's
was
like
going to tell you,
mosquitoes. I don't understand it. Maybe as a scientist, you could tell me why I should appreciate mosquitoes. I hate them.
the only thing I can come up with is that they're on the food chain.
That's it.
That's it. Or they're a reminder to be aware when you're outside.
Right. There we go. There we go. Man, this has extremely been very informative, man. I appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us because, like, you shared some good info. You got me interested in bees and bread. Uh, so, man, I definitely appreciate you taking some time to talk to us about some of this stuff, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, man. It's been an honor and a privilege.
Absolutely. And tell your wife thank you for sharing these I guess recipes and everything she's doing, and keep up the Waddle Wednesdays because we love them. We definitely love them, and keep those turkeys in your yard.
I'll try. You can't really put those things wings.
That's cool. All the way from California, man. Oak and Egg has been another episode of Excellent Adventures. We appreciate you.
Thank you.